Nurse anesthetists are nurses that are trained to administer anesthesia to patients who will undergo surgery. In this video, we're going to help you answer the question, should you become a nurse anesthetist in 2021? We're going to go over the latest salaries, job market statistics, and the latest trends. Coming up. Hey everyone, Stephen Hack here with Career Watch, where we help you with your career search. If you end up enjoying the video, hit that thumbs up to support the channel. And if you're a nurse anesthetist or you're trying to become one, let us know down in the comments below. Nurse anesthetists have a number of roles and responsibilities. They're involved in selecting, preparing, or using equipment, monitors, supplies, or drugs for the administration of anesthetics. They perform pre-anesthetic screenings, which can include physical evaluations and patient interviews. They develop anesthesia care plans. They calibrate and test anesthesia equipment. During a surgery, they'll perform or manage regional anesthetic techniques such as local, spinal, and epidural. They'll insert catheters into patients, and they have a number of roles and responsibilities beyond this list. A nurse anesthetist is actually a type of advanced practice nurse. To become a nurse anesthetist, you first have to become a registered nurse, which involves going to nursing school and becoming licensed. After becoming a registered nurse and working for a number of years, typically, then you have to apply to an advanced practice registered nurse program and attempt to become licensed as a nurse anesthetist. One of the perks of becoming a nurse anesthetist in 2021 is they are the highest paid nurses, and they have been the highest paid nurses for a number of years. In 2021, the average base salary for a nurse anesthetist, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, was $181,040. This was much more than nurse midwives, nurse practitioners, physician assistants, physical therapists, and registered nurses. In many cases, nurse anesthetists make more than double of what similar occupations might earn. And the wages of nurse anesthetists have been going up over the past several years. In 2012, the average base salary for a nurse anesthetist was $154,390. This grew to $181,090 in 2019. So just since 2012, the wages for nurse anesthetists have grown by around $27,000. This comes out to about $3,300 per year of wage growth. So needless to say, the wages of nurse anesthetists not only are a lot larger than similar occupations, but they're growing faster. The gap in pay between nurse anesthetists, nurse practitioners, and nurse midwives is growing. Using this average yearly wage growth number, in 2021, the average base salary would be around $188,000 per year. And by 2029, this average base salary would rise to about $214,000 per year. The wages of nurse anesthetists are different around the country. A national starting salary would probably be around the 10th percentile. This would be around $127,000 per year, whereas a nurse anesthetist that's in the top 10% of their field earns more than $203,000 per year. Geography also plays a role in the compensation of nurse anesthetists. In this map, the light blue states tend to pay the least and the dark blue states tend to pay nurse anesthetists the greatest wage. It seems like in this occupation, the highest paying states are all on the West Coast, and they're kind of in random states. In fact, the highest paying state for a nurse anesthetist in 2019 was actually the state of Montana, where the average base salary was around $239,000 per year. Other high paying states include the state of Oregon, Wisconsin, California, and the state of Iowa. So with many occupations, the highest paying states tend to be in expensive coastal states and cities. But in this case, Montana really doesn't have a high cost of living. Oregon doesn't really have a high cost of living. Seems like it's a little bit more random. Fun fact, the lowest paying state for nurse anesthetists was found to be the state of Arizona, where the average base salary was found to be $144,530, much less than what nurses or anesthetists make in the state of Montana. Work environment does play a role, but doesn't really play a huge role in the compensation of nurse anesthetists. The education industry tends to pay them the least amount of money, whereas hospitals tend to pay them the greatest amount of money, but all four work environments all pay six figures. So that covers the compensation of nurse anesthetists. Next up, what is the job market like? Is this a really competitive occupation? The first thing to understand is the nurse anesthetist workforce is tiny compared to similar occupations. In 2019, there was 43,570 employed nurse anesthetists. The workforce is larger than the nurse midwife workforce, but it is much less than nurse practitioners, physician assistants, physical therapists, and there are far less nurse anesthetists than registered nurses. The thing about occupations with small workforces is sometimes the city, state, or town might not have enough job opportunities for people in that particular occupation, and thus they might have to move to a different city, state, town. But the number of jobs for nurse anesthetists has been growing over the past several years. In 2012, there was 34,180 employed nurse anesthetists, and by 2019, there was 53,570. This is a growth of about 10,000 jobs from 2012 to 2019, or about 1,100 jobs per year. Based off this historical trend, by 2029, there would be about 55,000 employed nurse anesthetists around the country, whereas the government projecting is a little bit less. They're projecting about 50,000. So this is a growing occupation. Another metric to look at is the number of job postings for people in this occupation. So there's about 44,000 employed. When I looked on Indeed and I searched for CRNAs or nurse anesthetists around the entire United States, it came up with about 2,700 job postings. This means that there are about 16 times as many nurse anesthetists as there are job postings. This means that there isn't a shortage of nurse anesthetists, but it's not oversaturated either. There's far more of a physician shortage or dentist or orthodontic or oral surgeon shortage than there are for people in this occupation. And if you do become a nurse anesthetist, about 50%, almost 50% work in doctors' offices and about 27% work in hospitals. So those are the two biggest work environments for people in this occupation. So that covers the job market for people in this occupation. Next up, would this occupation be compatible with your interests? To determine this, definitely look into taking a RIASEC assessment. This allows you to compare your interests with people in different occupations. After you take a RIASEC assessment, you get scores in 6 different themes. Nurse anesthetists that take a RIASEC assessment, they tend to score high in the investigative and realistic themes. People that score high in the investigative theme tend to really enjoy analyzing, inquiring, and researching different information. They tend to be a little bit more abstract. Whereas people that score high in the realistic theme, they tend to like working with their hands. They tend to like building things, being outdoors, repairing things. So these two combinations are the highest scores for nurse anesthetists. So if you take a RIASEC assessment and you also score high in those two themes, this occupation could possibly be very compatible with your interests. Another similar occupation with people with these kind of interests would be actually possibly becoming a dentist. There's actually a shortage of dentists right now when you look at the number of job postings across the country. So if you can stomach the debt, this is also a potential occupation to look into. So as you can see, there are pros and cons becoming a nurse anesthetist in 2021. Nurse anesthetists are the highest paid nurses, and it's not even close. They are much higher paid than other nurses around the country. They are also seeing significant wage growth every single year, so the gap in pay between nurse anesthetists, nurse midwives, nurse practitioners, and registered nurses will continue to grow. Are you a nurse anesthetist? Let us know down in the comments below what you enjoy and what you dislike about the occupation. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.